Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, what we do on this podcast is talk about what B2B sales and marketing leaders, operators, and experts are doing today to really break through and grow their businesses at exponential levels. Let's get it in the interview. At the end, I'll give you an update on my courses, and you can check out my website at b2brevenue.com, and it's Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn.
Hey, Richard, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, Brian. Thanks for having me on. Well, I guess I always say watch out when somebody asks me to tell me about myself because it's my favorite subject, right?
Oh, okay. I should just sit back and relax then, huh?
Yeah, so I'll just give you the shortened 6-hour version, if that's okay. Now, if I could give you the headlines, right? So the headline, is that I'm a consultant and executive coach to really extraordinary leaders in fast-moving, complex markets like tech and pharma, where technology has really changed the rules. I was born in England. I now live in France, and I work with clients globally, especially in North America and Europe. So that's kind of like the headline view. Then I can kind of give you a bit of my rattle off my CV. Is it like the kind of different stages?
Well, tell us how you got to this point in your career.
Yeah. So, I kind of born in England. I went to Oxford University, got a nice degree there. Went into strategy consulting in the tech and telecom sector. Became the youngest ever partner in that. And that was fantastic, but I felt it was time to become a bit of a smaller fish in a bigger pond, right? I was a big fish at that point in a fairly small pond. So I joined Cisco, a tech giant.
Big pond.
And very big pond, right? So, I think the first global sales meeting that I went to at Cisco, I was sitting there amongst like 15,000 people at Las Vegas.
Yep.
And realized the cost of this event was probably about, it's probably like £20 million, $30 million or something, which was probably the revenues of my previous company in the entire year.
Yep.
Spent on this one event. So a very different view. And I guess what I was doing there at Cisco was, first of all, it was really helping sales teams create budgets at executive level for complex technology sales.
Yep.
So creating a large revenue pipeline, kind of trying to find really big pockets of money by speaking about business benefits and not about the technology. And sometimes actually turning things around. There was one contract where pretty much I think it was about a $40 million contract that we were told we'd lost. Actually, let me walk back a little bit. I'd done some work with the executive team a couple of years before about a new strategy for the way you might want to go forward in the internet era. And that had worked on really well. Everyone was very happy. And then 2 years later, they said, sales team said, hey, Richard, it never happened. They went, there was a local incumbent, very politically connected. They pulled some strings and they've awarded the contract to somebody else. I was like, it's a shame because the project had been so great. And then actually I got a call a couple of weeks later saying, actually, no, because of your work, Richard, the execs overturned the procurement decision because they felt it had been made on too much of a tactical level and hadn't taken into account the bigger, longer picture. So that was a great kind of win. So that's kind of what I loved in that role. It was being able to go in at the executive level and talk about what they really wanted to achieve. And then they let the sales team talk about the product, the positioning,
how it works,
how it works, and that kind of thing.
And so what was the impetus to start your own thing?
Yeah, so I guess so that was going well at Cisco, and then I actually got a new role at Cisco, which was a small team set up by the CEO and global head of sales to really catalyze strategic initiatives at the board level between Cisco and some of the key partners and customers. Yeah. So again, really trying to create things that had never been done, working a lot in cross-functional influence, right? Again, it's the classic thing of you can't make things happen by telling people. You have to really create a movement, right? People have to want to do something that's never been done before. So that was great. But I started to notice Cisco was doing a few things. It was going very much back into the networking, really focusing down on the core. Some of the more business level things that I was talking about were getting deprioritized. And I think I started to get to a stage, probably my midlife crisis, right, where I said, what do I want to create with the rest of my life? What's the story I wanted to tell my grandchildren?
Yep.
And I realized there's nothing wrong with it, but the story I don't want to tell my grandchildren is, I helped AT&T increase their EBITDA margin by,
it's something to talk around the Christmas tree about. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, right? But I thought, well, what is it that actually sets me on fire and brings together my skills, my interests, my passions? And I realized I've been obsessed about performance, creating results, but also doing that through people. And actually, my belief is that personal transformation is the key to business transformation. I think the recent article by McKinsey, they said organizations don't change, people do.
Yeah.
And that really resonates with me. So it's like, if I could actually bring the stuff I learned in management, in all these influence positions, rather than control positions, some of the things that I've been doing actually outside of work around changing cultures. And if I could bring that together with that whole strategy side, the financial understanding, the ability to communicate business value, if I could bring those things together, that would be, I felt, valuable to people and a bit different. You can get thousands of coaches and who talk about team building and things, right? And you can get lots of people who give you the business plan and that kind of thing. And you'll find people as well who want to talk about motivation and purpose and what drives you. For me, it's when you bring those together, strategy, leadership, and purpose.
Okay.
And do that in a digital world. That's what really gets me excited.
So how do you do that? Sounds like a lot.
Yeah. Well, so I guess, the how, I might need to expand the question, but I guess, fundamentally, I work with either really ambitious leaders who have really got to a certain stage in their career and they've gone, wow, look, objectively, I've got a great gig. And objectively, I've accomplished a lot. I'm flying higher than many other people, if I'm being honest, right? I've got to a certain level, but actually, I don't want to stay there. I don't want to just stagnate, but I know that actually what got me there won't get me to the next place, right? Yep. And actually, it's the higher you fly, the harder it is sometimes to change because you're like,
right. You don't want to go down.
I've got a thing that works, right? I know a thing that works, and it's a long way down, and I might have responsibility to my organization, to my family, to whatever, right? I can't start screwing this up. Yeah. And so there can be a lot of fear. I've been through that, right? I've had moments in my career when I probably stagnated. Probably should have left Cisco a couple of years before I did, but it was a comfy gig, right? I'm not saying everyone has to change their roles, right? I'm saying that it might be that you're leading an organization at a certain level. For example, in sales, right? You have a lot of sales people, any organization really, but you first of all become a producer, right? You start your career, you deliver, and you get good. And the people who are great at problem solving and getting results start to get minions, I call them, right? They get a team, they get a small team, and they've been given the team kind of to scale themselves a little bit, right? So they can kind of delegate some things and they can keep doing their magic and hopefully impart a bit. But then they start to get promoted. And I think what you find is that you rapidly become the bottleneck, right? You rapidly think, oh my word, it's all down to me. And you start to look at your team and say, well, I've got a few good people, but all these, half of my team are not pulling their weight, or they're not, they're dead wood, or whatever the expressions people use. And so people start to feel that they can't get any further because they haven't got the right people.
Yeah.
And what I've found is that it's normally, perhaps you've got 10% of people who are perhaps not right for the position and really shouldn't be there. But probably the rest, actually, they just need a different environment to thrive. And that's really what I love helping leaders create, is how do you create the environment that helps their teams step up?
So how do you do that?
So
can you give us like a case study or an example?
Yeah, let me give you an example. So I was working with a country leadership team. Okay, so the CEO and the head of all these different areas. You've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got operations, you've got HR, all these people, right? So they're very, very ambitious business objectives. I think they want to 5 times their business in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So it's a steep curve for them. So they definitely need to become a different team if they're going to do that. And again, the leader was, talking to me and said, well, I'm so frustrated because I'm the glue that's holding this team together. Everyone's doing their functional responsibilities, but we're not really a team, right? I've got a lot of high performers, but we're not a high performing team. My sales manager is extremely, great guy. But again, I'm not sure he's actually pushing his team far enough. So again, with sales managers, I find you either have people who create great sales organizations. People love to work there, but there's a bit of the comfort zone, and it's people aren't really growing and creating the results they should. Or you have kind of very dominating leaders, where it's all the pressure all the time, and actually people fly and they survive, but they don't actually engage. They don't bring their heart into it. They don't really bring the extra. So in this team, we had this group, and I think in this example, there's a few things that we did. So the first thing is focusing individually. Each person needs to understand, where is my growth edge, right? What's it going to take for me to become a different person? A little tool I use here is imagine imagine the most amazing person who comes in and starts doing your role instead of you. Right. So for example, it's a different story, but I was talking with a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and I was like, who is your, and this guy was called, I changed his name, so let's see, he was called Mark, right? I said to him, like, who's your most inspirational technology leader, right? Who really makes you go, wow, he's just so amazing. And he said, well, I guess Elon Musk, say, right? So I was like, okay, right. So what would Mark Musk be doing in this situation? Because when you because it's not about us learning a new technique, it's about us becoming a new person.
Visualizing, thinking outside of our comfort zone, our belief system.
Yeah, it's trying to, it's normally the secret is not we need to learn a new time management technique or productivity technique or management technique. It's actually starting to think
differently.
Not exactly a different person, because the person's already inside of us, but it's actually trying to think about who is that other person that I'm becoming or want to become. So one of the things I often do with people is help people understand, well, what is that growth edge? What would the leader you would most like to be like actually be? So I think that's the essential thing. So I go through the team. One of the things I try to say is, what's the mirror? Look at, what's it like to be experienced by somebody on the other side of the table? How do you come across? So if you're a salesman, you're in a meeting, sales leader, you're in a meeting with a customer, is your tendency to pull from the customer and to ask and to draw information out, which is great? Or is your tendency to communicate clearly, and kind of push a certain agenda or be very clear about what the customer should do? And again, there's a time for that as well. And we've probably, again, strong at one, a bit less good at the other, right? We have to think about the other one. One comes naturally, the other one is more deliberate. And so it's helping people understand, looking in the mirror to see that, because once they get the insight, they then have a chance of turning that into awareness. But if they haven't even had the insight, they can't create awareness and can't create change.
And what was the outcome of that engagement?
Sorry, so we've got a bit delayed. So the first thing is really working individually, right, with people. I really believe that if you don't have some of that seed of growth, the team doesn't change. And then with the team, we tend to get together for a couple of, people start to say, oh, they're team building sessions. But I say it's not really team building. This is a strategic working session. But the thing is, there's two sides of the coin, right? The first side is the organization. Like, are we actually clear? Are we aligned? What's our charter? Like, what's the one goal that we're going after together? Like, how do we actually relate to each other? What's the contract that we build in terms of how do we want to support each other? Are we prepared to challenge each other? Do we accept that? It's very hard most teams say they don't have courageous conversations with each other. They don't say the hard thing, right? And the reason why is that they haven't given each other explicit permission. So in one team I was working with, I'll give you a story. We at the very start, I set expectations. I don't set them. I ask the team to create an agreement. I say, how would you like to show up today? And we'll write down things like, be present. Don't be on your phone. Let's be engaged. Let's listen to each other. So we did all that. About an hour later, we were going around understanding where the team's weak points were, right? Where they needed to actually come together. And somebody got on their phone, actually. It was one of the leaders got on their phone, checking his emails. And I waited for the first person to finish. And I stopped and said, Steve, yeah? Do you have an emergency? Is there a family, is there a big business problem or a family emergency that you need to deal with? And he would say, no, it's okay, just some emails. So I turned to the whiteboard and said, look, Steve, we all put our hands up. I get a really physical commitment. We all put our hands up to say that we agree with these. Everyone had a chance to disagree, to reshape the words, to adjust it. We all agreed, right? You agreed. So I'd like to ask you to stick to what you agreed. So again, if I just said like, I don't want you on my phone in your phone, so I don't want you on your phone joining my meetings, that is not going to stick, right? He's just going to say, oh, you're being a jerk, I don't listen to you, you don't understand.
Yep.
But he committed, he made the decision. And so when I get teams together, I help them make commitments to each other that are very clear, and that then they can then create a new culture in the team. And so what I find is when that happens, a couple of things change. The first is that the team has a common language. So one of the key things I believe in is the power of language, because language creates culture. The words we use shape our world.
Yep.
So for example, I talked just a second ago, Brian, we talked about the leaders who are dominating leaders, right? And I'd say that's a lot of challenge. Okay. You also have leaders who are the nice guys, who create the nice environment, the comfort zone. I call that the insulator leader, because they insulate the team from reality, from the hard truths, and themselves from the hard discussions. And that's what I call a high support leader. So you have support and challenge. The thing is, we tend to be good at one or good at the other. Sometimes we have neither. We kind of abdicate and we kind of create this apathy culture. But when you bring them together, I call it an activator leader, right? Because you're kind of pushing people. You're saying you've got to grow. I'm going to help you grow, but I'm also on your side. And I know you're not just a resource. You're actually a person.
Yep.
And I want to have a relationship and not just treat you as a production unit.
Right.
And so when people start to understand this idea of the activator leader, high support and high challenge, and you start to have new conversations in the team. So in this team, for example, it was an insulator leader. He started to realize, oh yeah, everyone loves working for me, but I'm not actually
producing,
telling them where the growth opportunities are. I'm saying it's great job, but then he's trying to work late at night to try to cover up for the mistakes of the team and the quality issues in the team.
Yeah. And what's preventing all of this? Because typically when I've been at a company, people have conflicting goals. Like the classic one is marketing and sales.
Yeah.
And the contract is leads, which is the wrong contract, because one's incentivized to produce the most, so they get credit for it, which causes a problem for the other, meaning that the more there are, the less quality there is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So they want leads, but they want the right kind of leads. And how do you get those people who have conflicting goals to get along? Yeah,
well, absolutely. So, and this is what happens. So, the result of these kind of engagements tends to be that the team starts to create things that they didn't believe were possible before, right? Yeah. So they'll, I always say, I'm looking for, personally, I want to create at least a 10x return on investment for people, right? And normally it's an uptick in the growth. And the only way you can do that, is to deal with these issues. And there's business, as you say, is a complex system with all these interdependencies. And so a lot of companies, they shoot themselves in the foot by breaking the business up into all these microscopic units and asking different people to optimize each individual number. Depending on how much leeway the team has, some of those financial incentives, can or can't be shaped, right? So sometimes they can be shaped, sometimes they can't. Often people want to jump to all the organizational side, but actually the personal side is so important, right? If you don't have trust, And I talk about two sorts of trust. There's transactional trust, which is just like, do I trust that you can get your job done? And sometimes there's already a thing there that's missing, right? But then there's relational trust, which is, am I prepared to be vulnerable with you? Or do I believe that's going to be against me? Do I actually
stab me in the back?
Yeah. And so I'm like the James Bond, doing a James Bond thing. So I'm working at I'm talking about the business stuff, but I'm making sure we're having enough other moments. For example, we'll do a dinner, if it's live, or on a team, on team calls, we'll do certain exercises where people just get to start to open up a little bit more and explain, this is the thing I'm working on, right? This is where I'm kind of struggling, perhaps in my own career, or the thing that I'm struggling with, right? And to get people to actually start to put these things on the table, and to be honest, to start to look at, I call it the ally model. So the conflictual model is, you've got marketing on one side saying, I create loads of leads and sales can't sell it. They haven't got a process. There's all these leads stacking up in the system. No one's looked at them. And sales like, I never look in the system because all the leads are total rubbish, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of discussion. And so the discussion is to try to get them on the same side to say, okay, so we've got this kind of thing going on, right? Where, I'm like basically being asked to generate as many leads as possible. You've been asked to use your time wisely, right? And focus on the highest probability. And so the question is like almost looking at it as a third entity. I tend to pick up a cup from the table and kind of hold it out there. Say, interesting. How do we resolve that? How do we resolve that together? Given the fact we've got these, stupid management KPIs,
right? How
do we do that? And get curious. So I have this distinction: curious versus dubious, right? Dubious is that kind of like, they don't even want to play. They're not a team player. We can never solve this. We've tried it before. It's kind of like, I already have all the answers. And curious is the question mindset.
Yeah. And how do you think things have changed, say, in the last 5 years, as far as like, everybody getting online, digital transformation? How has this affected how well leaders are growing their business?
So I think that it's absolutely changed things beyond recognition in many ways. And in a sense, it's hard for me to realize, because as at Cisco, we were on the leading edge of this. We were bringing in video and remote working and all these things, perhaps before a lot of other companies, right? Because we were kind of living the dream. So I would say there's 5 things. I call them context blurring, which is work-life balance. It's totally mixed in, right? Blurred context. There's information overload. We're all managing infinity. There's an infinite number of books to read, TV shows to watch, contacts to network with. Whatever you want, there's an infinity of it, right? So you have to manage infinity. You have to prioritize. You can't just do more. To battle that. There's virtual relationships, right? So actually the danger when everyone's in different offices or doing things remotely, or you've got contractors, is you can get very transactional. You hop on the call, right? Let's just get to business, and you don't build the trust.
Right.
You don't get to shoot off about what happened at the weekend, or understand the family life of the people you work with, which perhaps you would have done because you'd have had a coffee break or whatever. So virtual relationships, they can work well, but if you're not careful, it can become very transactional. And then you have dynamic teams. So teams are changing all the time, reconfiguration, mergers, people being reassigned, shorter term contracts. And so you can't do that whole norming and forming and all that stuff that you used to do, knowing that you had the same team for 5 or 10 years, right? So this is why there's creating a language in an organization that allows people to collaborate objectively becomes really important, because that is mobile and it's sticky and it's quick to learn. And then the last one is what I call winning coalitions. So it's not about a power base of a hierarchical power base. It's about influencing people outside of your own hierarchy.
Yeah.
So all of these things, they basically mean that influence changes, right? You have to, you can't be just a jerk of a leader who pulls the lead,
right. People just smile and nod and nothing gets done.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why you need to say, well, how do I actually build relational influence? Um, how do I become a leader somebody wants to work for, rather than somebody that they feel they have to work for?
Yeah.
If the people feel they have to work for you, they might not be the people you want anyway.
Right. They'll do as little as possible to show evidence that they did what you asked instead of what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And for the leader, one of the challenges, as I said, there's always two choices. So perhaps this is going to be a really practical thing for some of your listeners. You've probably got to where you've got to by going fast, solving the problem and going fast. Now, in every conversation, there's a choice. So if you're a sales leader, say with a sales team, you can keep going fast, solving their problems. They come to you with a problem, you solve it, you move on. But actually, the other choice is to build capacity. Now, building capacity actually creates momentum exponentially, but it's slower in the moment, right? It takes longer because you have to get people to interact, to think. You have to start coaching them a bit. You don't tell them the answer. You ask them about their thought process.
Right.
You ask them to guess what you're thinking in this moment.
So tell us who's the perfect client for you. Who do you help the most?
I think I help people who've either got or they want to have a big goal, a huge objective, right? Something that they want to achieve that feels almost impossible for them right now.
Yeah.
In other words, something which is almost going to force them to play at a bigger level, play a bigger game. And that's either something, and there's always the two sides to that. There's either it's requiring me to step up, I want to function at a new level. Or they're actually going, actually, this mission is so big, I need my team to play at a higher level.
Yeah.
And yet I haven't got tons of time to spend training my team and giving them all this stuff. So it's people who want to actually get a real shift in themselves or in their team without spending kind of huge amounts of time on sending people to conferences and training courses and things. Because frankly, in this world, people don't have that time.
No.
So in general, it's people who have achieved something quite significant already, want to go to the next level, and probably want to take their people with them to release their power, build a bit of a movement around that next goal.
Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your company?
So I'm in LinkedIn, Richard Medcalf with a D and no E. And my company's called X Quadrant, so an X and then the word quadrant.com. And what I'll do, I'll put together a little bundle of about 3 or 4 of these key leadership tools that I think would be the most relevant based on the conversation we've just had around leadership and influence. They're really simple visual tools. You can use them yourself, get a quick aha. You can use them with your team. So if you just go to xquadrant.com/B2B, then you can download those, and hopefully those will be something really simple you can use in about 5 or 10 minutes and start to see some benefit already.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or you know what doesn't work, I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over, or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.